Hey mini makers, it's Candace with Paisley Grace Makery, and today we are going to open our July mini maker box and see what we have in here. So when you open your box, first thing you're going to see is one of our little flyers, and on this flyer it's going to give a sample of their projects that we have, and then there's a little QR code that takes you straight to the tutorial. And it's also going to have a discount code in there for anything else that you purchase. So definitely take that out, give that to your parents so that they can keep track of that. And then inside your box this month is such a cute little theme. We are doing a little fox theme. So first thing you're gonna have is your book, and it's Flossie and the Fox. So this is just a cute little book, like good illustrations in here, really pretty illustrations, so that will be fun. And then we have our 3D layered fox items. You can see through this one, so that's kind of a fun, unique thing to this design. So it's multiple layers. You can set it down on a shelf, and you're going to paint each layer separately and then put it all together. So it's a simple, easy project that looks really complicated, but I promise you can do it. And then a really fun thing we're going to have in here, each child is going to get their first initial with a little fox. Now they all do look a little different, as all letters do. The images are different. Here's another example of a different one. This is your A. So each one is going to look a little bit different. Also in our box, you're going to get the paints that you need to complete the project, the ones that we selected the colors, and you're going to get a little kit that has all your supplies you need: sponges, glue, brushes, and a little instruction sheet in there. So if you're trying to figure out what to do with it, then it's all in there. So our subscription box is a bi-monthly. You can join at any time, stop at any time that you want to, but it's lots of fun, lots of creative fun, and get a great book with it every time that coordinates with your project. So it's just really a good deal. So the other thing I like about our boxes is they come in these nice little pizza box when it comes to your house. You'll see it's got our logo on it, but this is great because you can take this paper out, open this box up all the way, and do your project right on it. And then that keeps all the mess away, and nobody's getting on to you for making a mess. And parents, you know, if you're sitting there going, oh, I just don't want to deal with that, it just makes it so simple to do the project here. And then if they don't get it finished and it's time to do something else, just put everything in it, close it up, and then you can put it out of the way until you can work on it again. So it's just a great thing. Okay, so it's time to get going on our projects for our July box. So we got our little book. We're just going to put that out of the way so we don't get any paint on it. Like I said, most of your things are going to come in the box that you need. Additional things you might want is some paper towels. We use these little blue shop towels that are really great. Just to have one on hand is always a great thing to sponge off any excess paint, wipe fingers down. A pair of scissors sometimes is needed. Always ask a parent or an adult for help with this so that you're not cutting yourself. And then you will need maybe some tweezers every once in a while, but today's box, I don't even think we need those. So we're gonna go ahead and move this box out of the way. If you're working at home, open it flat and paint right on it so you don't get paint anywhere. We've got our brown paper down, so we're just gonna move it out of the way and paint right here on our table with our brown craft paper. So we've got our sponge kits here. I'm just gonna open those up. I'm gonna put it to the side over here. It's got glue, sponges, a little piece of sandpaper, a touch-up brush for putting the glue on. And then let's get our paints open. Such pretty fall colors. So we gave you a fall project so you could get ahead and be ready so that you have plenty of time to have this ready to display by fall in your house. So, and then our next box, a little hint, is gonna be a Christmas theme. So staying on getting ahead for that, you'll get to do that. So we are going to start with our cute little layered fox. So I just got my paints over here, just put them off to the side. open up our project here. This is a cute one. I really love it. It's got cute little flowers that you can paint whatever colors you want. So, like I said, with your layered projects, everything comes and you paint each layer separate. So you're gonna paint each layer a separate color. And the great thing about this project is that they're actually numbered. Hopefully you can see that there. See, each layer is numbered. You will notice that you do not have a 1, because that's our top frame, and you do not have a 2, because it was kind of like a duplicate layer that we did not need. So yours is going to be 3 through 10, and they will go right in order, so it really helps with putting it together. So what I like to do when I'm doing a layered project like this is kind of look at each layer as it corresponds to the next one. So we're gonna kind of do this together. So top frame, I'm just gonna put to the side right now because I'm not sure what color I want to paint that one, because I've got lots of great colors here and I need to figure out some of the other layers. So then I start looking at what I have to do next. So I'm gonna kind of take my fox layers here. So I've got my fox layers here. In our kit here, we've got 2 colors that are great for the fox, and we're probably gonna end up doing some alternating here, because like this top one is definitely gonna be the lighter color, and then we'll do the darker color underneath that. And then the next layer down is what's behind his nose and this little piece is sticking up here. So you can kind of see what you're gonna see through there. So after that, we're gonna see some black through there. So if you have black, you know, the eyes and the nose, so if you have black at home, you could do that. You could mix a little red in with this and make a kind of pink for the nose if you want a little bit of pink nose. And I'm trying to think, those must be his little legs. So that's kind of a tricky layer, what's underneath there. So we definitely are gonna do this. Layer 4 is the darker brown. Layer 3 is the light brown. Layer 5 is probably going to be, ooh, it's a tricky one. I feel like it needs to be part one color up top and part another color at the bottom. So I'm gonna kind of put that to the side. Then layer 5 is a lot of his like little fur stuff. So I'm gonna do that my number 5 color. So that's layer 6 is gonna be the number 5 paint. And then number 7 is going to be the dark number 7 again. So we've got those 2. So right now we've got 3 and 6 are going to be painted with number 5, and layers 7 and 4 are going to be painted with paint color 7. So if you want to do it just like I'm doing it, that's why I'm giving you those numbers, but you obviously can paint this any way that you want to paint it. So if you have some leftover paints from some of our other boxes, that would be great to do. And then especially like this one, it probably needs a little black up here to do the nose and the eyes on this part of it. But I don't have that in this box, but I think I do want to do the dark brown underneath here. So we're gonna play around and figure that part out. So that's kind of in between, and then we're gonna paint those and then figure out, well, I guess we can figure out. At this point, you're not really gonna see the fox anymore behind there, because if you look, layer 7 completely covers the fox up. So starting at layer 8, all you're gonna paint is flowers, okay? So that makes it a little easier. If you always try to hold the previous layer up, then you'll see, okay, what do I need to paint on this next layer and what can I see? And that helps you with figuring that out. So when we get down to flowers here, we're going to do, I think I'm gonna do layer 8 with my yellow, which is number 19. And then I'm going to do number 9, which in 9, I'm going to start seeing branches here, and I'm gonna see the centers of flowers. So that's what we're gonna do. Every once in a while, there'll be a little piece left in there. You can just have an adult help you poke that out. If you see something left in there that looks like it should be poked out, we just had one tiny little one there. So that is going to be orange. And then I think this layer 10 has these cute little berries there that's gonna play off of the other one. And so I want those berries to be red. So I'm gonna do that layer as red, okay? So that is going to be everything there. And now that we've kind of figured out what color we want to paint everything, it makes it go a lot faster. So keep in mind, this outside frame is going to be covered by the frame on top of it and the very top frame. So I don't need to paint the outside frame on everything. And then on this layer, layer 10 with my red, I'm gonna scoop in and get my paint. So you wanna dip the end of your sponge in. You wanna scrape off all that excess paint, okay? So if you've been painting with us for a while, you know we always say a little bit of paint goes a long way. So when you're working on these projects, you don't want a ton of paint on your sponge because it's just gonna ooze down over the side, and then it's gonna bulk up the sides of your laser piece. It's gonna take a long time to dry. So definitely make sure you go in, dip down, and then scrape off that excess paint, okay? And then after that, we're just gonna do a hopping motion. So we call these our little bunny sponges. You're gonna hold it up here by the ears and just hop, 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 hop right on that project. I say you like to hop until you don't see it shiny anymore, because shiny paint is wet paint. So if it's wet, then you need to kind of use that sponge to help spread it out and spread it around. So here we go. Gonna paint all of these berries on this. So when you're looking at this, you think, oh, Candace, that's a lot of things to paint, but you really only have to paint the things that you will see from the layer before. So always remember, you can find that number and hold it up against it and compare what you've seen. So as soon as I finish painting this, I'm gonna show you that. It's real quick to look at it and just see what else you need to paint and see if there's anything you missed. Always do it before you glue it together, and then it's an easy fix that way. Okay. So let's see. These beautiful fall colors get you ready. I know July seems kind of early to be talking about fall, but everything's always ahead. You know, you're preparing ahead, and that way you've got plenty of time to get this project done, even if you haven't had time because you've been too busy enjoying your summer break. Okay, so that's what we've got painted so far. So you see, I didn't paint most of this piece, but I'm gonna hold up number 9, and I'm gonna look and see what that looks like. And that looks perfect. So I got my berries, which is the main thing I was painting red with this. So there's my berries. So that layer is done. Now I'm gonna go to layer 9. Layer 9 is painted with the orange paint, which is number 18. Doing the same technique here. I'm gonna go in, dip, scrape off the excess. You can also hop this off on a paper towel if you get too much. Sometimes you can go like that before you start on your laser piece, but you just wanna make sure you don't have too much paint. And then this layer, I know, looking at my other piece, layer number 8, that I can see the centers of these flowers. So I wanna go along and paint all the flowers. You don't have to paint the whole flower, just get to the center. And then you can see all these little branches that are on layer 9. It's got the starts of the little branches. So if you wanted to paint those branches brown, you could do that. You could come back in with the sponge and just carefully get there to your branch. It kind of depends on, you know, how much detail you want to put into this. You can use our little touch-up brush to get in there and paint those branches as well. So it really kind of depends on how precise you want it to be. If you are okay with some little orange branches, I think they're cute. So you can make our projects as simple or as complicated as you want. If you want to get really detailed and add lots of accents and details, we love to see that. So you go for it. But if you want to keep it simple, it's going to be an amazing project either way. So, okay, so that is layer 9. And that is going to go right here in front of layer 10. So now you can see our red berries, their flowers, and then if I'll show you what layer 8 is going to look like. So now you can see those branches are orange there. We got our red berries, the center of our flowers are orange, and now we're going to paint our flowers. So they are going to be with 19, which is our yellow. Same technique, once again, big end of the sponge into the paint, scrape off the excess, blot it on the paper towel if you have too much. But on this layer, all we have to worry about is those flowers. They look like little daisies, they're really cute. Remember, after you do your project, have your parents post it. If you want us to look at your photo, you can always tag Paisley Grace on Facebook. If you if your parents do Facebook and you want to get on there and put your photo up of your project, we love seeing your projects when they're all done. So fun to see them. A lot of our mini makers we ship to, so we don't see them locally, so it's great to see them online to see what their projects look like. So, because like I said, you can make these any color. If you got some pink paint at home or purple paint and you want some different color flowers, and you can make this not even look fall when it's done. You can make a pink box if you want to. I've seen people draw them with pink. It's really cute. I also want to hear about how you like the book, if you like that story. You can get your parents to read to you, or you can even read to your parents. It's great. Okay, so we're just hopping our flowers here. And then if you do a very thin coat, like I'm saying, it will dry really quick. So mine is pretty much almost dry by the time I put it on. So now layer 8 is going to go on top of layer 9. And now you can really see it coming together and coming to life, because you got your berries, you got the center of your flowers, you got your yellow flowers, and now it's time to get into this box. So let's see, layer 7 is the brown. You do have a sponge for each color, so just keep grabbing your new sponge. You're going to use these to paint both projects. So now we do need to paint this entire body of this box. So you will use a little more paint on this layer. Get this painted. Whenever I think of fox, I think of Fox and Socks. They're one of the Dr. Seuss books. He's a funny fox. Get this done. Hop, hop, hop. Remember, you do not have to do your frame, because it's going to be done with the very top frame. You won't even see this other frame. If you want to paint everything, you can, but like I said, you won't see it, so really no point. If you feel like yours needs a second coat, you let the first coat dry. You do not want to paint wet paint on top of wet paint. It won't stick. You have to let it dry before you paint the next layer. I think one coat looks pretty good. There's a few places I just went back over and hopped, because I'm doing really light coats. It's drying pretty darn quick. So on that one, it's just painted in the middle. I'm gonna put that right on top. And now you can really see the flowers starting to come through. So that's layer 7 is that. Is Layer 7 gets paint number 7. That's easy to remember. Then layer 6 is gonna get paint number 5. Okay, so this is the kind of tan, light tan paint. And this is not the layer that I said I'm gonna paint 2 colors. This is the one where we're gonna start seeing his, the fur on his face more. So that's why we did it lighter. And I think that's mostly what you're gonna see on this one. It's what's hanging down, really. I think is the only fur we're seeing from this layer. We're not gonna see this bottom part. That's just gonna help, that's just there to help build it up. This one's gonna be a little bit harder for you to see when I hold it up because this color of paint is not a whole lot different from the wood color. So slightly different. You can see it right there. But if I show you what layer 5 covers up, see, layer 5 covers all of that. So the only thing we see there is that because layer 5 is covering up that whole bottom piece, okay? So we are gonna put layer 6 over here is done. Now 5 is the one where we're gonna get a little bit tricky and we're gonna mix some colors with this one just because we've got some background stuff going on and we wanna figure it out. So his little legs are sticking up here. So it's like the fox is sitting with his little knees up is what it looks like to me. So these little pieces that are sticking up here are like his little knees. So we're gonna try to make those stand out a little bit. I don't need to worry too much about his tail because we're gonna pick that up on the next piece, okay? So I'm really just focused on these knees. And so to get them so that they have a little bit different color to them, I'm actually gonna take a little bit of my red and put it over here and mix it in with my tan, okay? And see what that looks like. And you can kind of keep mixing in the 2 colors until you like the way it looks. And I actually want to do a little bit of red, a little bit of the light tan, and then a little bit of brown. Just to kind of give that red foxy look. And this is where it gets fun because you get to make this your own project and try different things, try mixing some colors. I'm doing it right on there. If you want to mix your color off to the side, like on a little paper plate or on the side of the box, you can do that too. So I just want it to have a little bit of a different color than the rest of the box. I'm gonna hold it right up against layer 7 so you can see. So you can see his body is that color, but I made his little legs so you can see him better. Just with a little bit of red. It's kind of that red fox color. So let's get our things back in order here, 7, 6. Now, we gotta deal with that face. So if you have black from a previous project, I'm gonna suggest that. But I'm gonna try to figure it out here with what we got as far as what we wanna do there. You can do just straight up red on his eyes and his nose, that would work. You could do just the nose part as red, which is what I think I'm gonna do here. So just down at the bottom is where his nose pops through. So I'm using a little bit of the red there. And you'll see that when I put his little face over it, you can now see the red down through his nose. Okay, and then that layer is gonna be that darker brown, the next layer up. So I think I am going to do maybe yellow eyes. How about that? That's like even more fun. So I just want to figure out where the eyes are, and then I'm gonna kind of sponge in that area. Remember, you're only gonna see the nose and the eyes through these slits, so you do not have to be very precise. That's kind of what mine looks like. He looks like a little clown, so I painted his little knees, his nose, and his eyes. And now let's see when we put this over it. Perfect. So I've got his eyes. It's kind of hard to see on the camera, but they're yellow. His nose is red, and his little knees, we put the red and brown and tan, kind of all mixed together and made a color. So that layer is done, layer 5. Then layer 4, we're gonna go back to our number 7 darker brown paint. And then on this, we are going to paint, let's see. This one gets a little tricky because I want to do his little fur part as more white or a lighter brown. So I'm going to kind of draw a little line with my sponge over to where his fur would be. So this is the only one where I think you might need a grown-up's help if you want to do it the same way. But you could just paint this all the brown too. It's completely up to you how detailed you want to get on this. We want you to know that you don't have to make these projects complex, but if you want to, you can get in there and add the details and make it really fancy. And go back in and add some little accents with a paintbrush. If you're very artistic, these are definitely projects that you can make easy or more complex, either way. Okay, so now we are gonna do his little tail down here at the bottom, the darker brown too, because we have our next piece up is an accent piece for the tail and his face. So, I'm gonna see that. Now, before I do his next part, I'm gonna lay this down here and see what I'm thinking. Oh goodness. So, I'm not liking how I did that face, so I'm gonna change that and go back and just do it all the darker brown. Because of the way this next face mask does cover it. So, this is why we check, see? It's a good example of why we check before we go on to the next piece, so we know exactly what it looks like. So that was an easy fix, real quick there. So now, that piece is all this one color. So piece number 4 got all of paint number 7, and now I'll show you why, because now we've got this next piece that's light, that's gonna go right over it. So we are gonna go back to paint number 5. Yeah, paint number 5. And we're gonna paint his little bandit looking face. Gives the details around his eyes. Okay. I just love this project. When I saw it, I was so excited, and I hope you guys love it as much as I do. I think foxes are so cute, and you're gonna like this sitting in your room. This would be great on your little bedside table, or on a bookshelf in your room, or on a desk if you have a desk in your room. Doing homework wouldn't seem so hard if you've got a cute little fox looking back at you. I know you're not having to think about homework if you're doing this in July, because you're not enjoying that summer break. And we're going to do this little accent tail piece over here. Now, okay, so I'm going to do that, and then I have decided, just by working on this, that I'm going to paint my frame red, because I want that red to pop. It's all the way at that back layer. We only see it with our berries. So I think it'd be really cute to do it a little bit red. Now, we're doing the same technique on the top frame. Just hop along there. I am just taking the sponge where I dipped it in, scraped off the excess, I'm taking that side of the sponge and going right along the edge of my frame. Hop, 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 hop. Getting that done. Yeah. So you're just gonna go all the way around and do that. You could be watching a movie while you're doing this painting. Maybe The Fox and the Hound. That would be a cute movie. Paint along too. Half of it done. Turn it around. Next thing we're gonna do is glue this together. So in your kit, you have some wood glue. And if you're doing this by yourself, I definitely suggest using that. And I'm gonna show you how to do that. It does take a little bit longer. You may have to take a break in between each layer when you're doing that. So, you might need to weight it down just so that it stays, like put some heavy books on top of it. But you want to make sure everything's good and dry before you start gluing down. So, I am going to do one more thing on this before I move on to gluing though. So this is a completely optional step. You do not have to do this one. It's just if you want to. We're going to do a little bit of distressing. So if you've painted with us before, you've seen distressing. So we use our brush. Now we're finally going to use a brush to paint. So I open up my brush and I kind of make those bristles. I just run it right in my hand to kind of separate them, get a little texture. Then I'm going to go right into my paint. I'm going to use number 5. Dip my tips right into there just a little bit, right on the very end. Then I'm going to go over here to my paper towel and I'm going to take off most of that paint on my paper towel. And then I'm going to lightly go across my frame with it. I just want to distress it a little bit, add a little dimension and texture. Like I said, it's completely optional if you want to do this or not. It's like the advanced, the next level. And then I want to add a little bit to my layer number 3. Yeah, so we're going to do his tail. So now I'm just wiping off most of that paint. I'm going to go back into paint number 7, which is the darker brown. Take most of that off, and then just following right along with the shape of my tail, I'm just going to do a swoosh. And that just adds a cool little element there. Okay? So it doesn't need to be real complex. You could also do a little bit of that up on his mask, around his ears. Just follow the shape, go real light if you're doing it. That way you keep the interest, and hopefully you can see that. It's very subtle. Definitely see it more in his tail. I went a little heavier in his tail, but it just adds a little extra dimension. So now we just add that frame on there. Let's take a look at our fox. All done up. So cute. Look how adorable he is. So I think he would look cuter with some black eyes if you got him, but I'm not mad about those yellow eyes either. I think it's fun how you can see right through him. And you can put this behind something really cool in your room, and you'll get that there. If you want to see, I do see some areas that I can see through that were not painted. So I'm going to go back in and touch those up around my eye pieces. This is where you can look at your piece, make sure it's exactly how you want it to look before you move on to gluing it. You want to put it all together, look at it, look at all your layers, make sure you've gotten everything covered well. This is the time. I think he's adorable. He's just a cute little fox. Okay, so time to glue him. So I do like to start from the back. So I'm going to push my paints out of the way. And we're gonna start with number 10 here. Okay, so I'm laying 10 down, and then I'm gonna go to number 9. So this is a lot of body here for the fox. So you definitely want to use a little bit of glue in the middle, but you don't have to do a lot because the frame on the outside is mainly what we're focusing on. So if you're using the wood glue that comes in your kit, just use your brush. If you're impatient like me, sometimes I stick, you know, a little finger in there. This is not a real thick frame though, so we don't need to pour it on there. It would be too much. It's a real thin frame that we're dealing with, so I'm just using the brush and just going around and brushing it on. And then I'm gonna add a few dots of it over here. Okay, so remember what I was talking about, putting it on and having something heavy? That's something good to do with these projects, just because it's gonna take a little bit of force to keep these together because they are wood and you're using a glue that has water in it, and so it's gonna wanna warp the wood a little bit. So it's really good to have a lot of pressure. So you either need to sit here and hold it like I'm doing right now, or you can do 2 layers together like this, put a heavy book on it, give it a little break, cover your glue up, come back, do the next layer or so. You can do it like that too. So this is pretty good right now. I will put something heavy on it when I'm completely done. And so I'm gonna do one more layer with this wood glue just to show you. And then I'm gonna switch. So if you've got a parent helping you, you can have them help you with our Starbond glue. So our Starbond glue is available for purchase here in the shop. You can order it online too. And it is my glue is spinning around, you see that? It is a type of super glue. It is a gap filling super glue, and it's super strong. So it's really good for our wood projects because it really gets in there and holds them together good. I always recommend it, but the wood glue does work. It just takes a little bit longer to dry. So I know when we're sitting here and you're watching me paint, it's kind of boring to watch somebody put glue on. So I'm not even gonna worry about the flowers because they're on the inside. They do not need to have glue on every flower. The main thing is your frames. You wanna make sure you're getting it even all the way around, okay? Just working from the back and going forward. That's all we're doing here. So that's that layer. And then if you use the Starbond, this is our Starbond glue. Let me get a little bottle that I've already got open here. Be very careful with this because you don't want to get it on your fingers. It will stay stuck to your fingers. It is not forgiving, and you don't need a ton. So on this, we're just going to make some dots going around our frame. This is not a real thick, heavy dot. It's just like a little light dot. And ears right down the middle, maybe 5 or 6 right in the middle of his body. You can see it's not very much at all of this glue. It does glue faster, so as you're sitting here holding it and putting it down, you want to make sure you get it in the right spot because it will stick to the wrong spot really fast. So, and the more glue you use, the more likely that you're gonna have something get all over your hands, and like I said, it's not easy to get off your hands. So definitely go easy on that. We're just sticking this together, hold. Okay, and we're just gonna keep doing that. And like I said, at the end, I will sit there and put something heavy on it just to make sure it's all done. If I wasn't doing this for you guys and you were waiting to see what it looked like, I would do a few layers and then let it set for a while. But I know you're waiting to see what this box looks like. I'm excited too. His little knees sticking out are cute. So as you're gluing, you can put it up on the table like I'm doing to make sure that the bottom all is level. It's very important that the bottom is level because that's what's gonna make it set. So if you've not done all your bottom pieces level, then your little box is not gonna set up right on anything. So definitely take some time and put that straight down. And we need to let this set for a little bit before we do the next layer. I'm just pushing down, giving some pressure. If you want to take a break, let your parents glue it together. You did the fun part already, right? So, all right, so that, we're just gonna keep doing that, keep doing that. Each little layer is gonna get glued together. So pretend I just did all those. It's gonna go down like that. And then your little fox is gonna be there. So definitely take your time with the gluing part. It's really important that you do it nice and neat and then it comes together good. But that is our main project in this box. Okay, so we did that and now we get to go on to our letter. So you're gonna get your first initial. This you can put on your door. It'd be really cool. Have your parents help you put it up with a command strip right on your door if you wanted to your room. You can put it on your desk again, you know, like wherever you might want to display your initial. So we thought this would be fun. There's lots of cool, and you can, once again, with this one, you can get as complex as you want to. With this one, I am gonna do the back of it green. We have not done that. I'm gonna switch to my big sponge because we're doing a bigger open area. So we're gonna go to our big yellow sponge, okay? And for this, same technique, dip in, scrape off all the excess. Then you're gonna use this and you're gonna push this paint into the wood. So you don't want it sitting on top, you wanna push it into the wood. And it's going to go on there kind of like when you put sunscreen on at the beach. So you want to rub it in really good and not have it sitting on top of your skin. You don't want paint sitting on top of our board. We want that paint rubbed in, and that's going to give us a nice, really cool project when it's done. So you, once again, can do whatever you want here. If you want to do a tie-dye effect in the back, you can use different colors. You can do an ombre effect where it starts off, you know, red, then orange, then yellow on the background. You really have a lot of choices with it. So that's what's cool about this. So you can kind of get as complex as you want. You can also do some distressing. So I'm just thinking this is more like the forest here. So I wanted that green. And then I think I'm gonna do a little bit of yellow distressing in there. So I'm just gonna go right into my yellow, take off most of it on my paper towel. Same thing that I did before. Just follow along as much of that as you want on there or as little. Totally optional step. You do not have to do this step if you don't want to. You got pink and purple at home and you want to do pink and purple? Do it. Okay, so now we've got a few different colors here. So we got grass down at the bottom, so I am going to do some green down here. And this is where, again, you can choose whether you want to do different colors or not. I am going to kind of do a few different colors on this. Just take my time and make it look a little fancy. But you could also paint this whole piece one solid color, okay? Then we've got some trees in the background that look like birch trees to me. And so birch trees are this light tan color. So that's what I'm gonna do next. And I'm actually going to cut this sponge in half. So get some help from an adult and use that to cut that sponge in half, okay? And the reason I did that is because we're gonna be painting some smaller areas, so it just helps to get in there with a smaller sponge and paint that. So I want my trees to be this color, and then my fox is gonna be the other brown. So I'm gonna do this first because it's lighter, and if it gets on my fox, it's okay because I'm gonna cover it up, okay? So we're gonna go in. We don't have to be super careful with this one because we got the trees we're painting. Paint all the little things around. Maybe even paint the foxes into the fox's tail over here with this color, okay? I'm gonna paint all the inside framing of the letter, because like this A goes in here, it's gonna be this color too. The only thing that's gonna be the dark brown is the fox itself, okay? So using that same technique of dipping your sponge, wiping it off, but we're just got a little tiny sponge now, okay? Right along here. I'm even gonna cut the end of this off. So you can reuse these sponges pretty good by cutting pieces off if it's like been used a lot, because I've got some dried paint from when we were working before coming off on this, and I don't want that there. So it's a good way to use your sponge as much as possible. So, paint these birch trees the light tan. And our frame. This light tan, like I said, is not a whole lot different color than our wood. So, part of the box there where it goes around. Okay, so figure out where I need to go still. And then I've got some green touch-up to do. There. Make some more grass there. And I painted that piece of grass the tan color, so we can just go right back in and touch that up. It's not a problem. Show you what we're working with here. It's kind of hard to see that light tan, especially on the camera, but we got the green down there. We did all the light tan with the trees and the outline. And now we're going to do our fox. So you can still go back in with your sponge. I am going to cut this smaller still again. My dark brown sponge, I'm still gonna cut small. I'm gonna go in and dip, scrape off the excess, and then we're gonna sponge. So you can follow along and do that just with the sponge, or if it's easier for you and you want to get a paintbrush to get some of those detail areas, you can do that too. Whatever works and whatever makes it easier for you is great. So there are areas where I'm gonna kind of let the light lead it, because it's like around this part down here below on the fox where it would naturally be a little bit lighter. And as you go across his back, just go real slow with the sponge and angle it. You'll see the shape of the fox. And every letter is different. So that's the cool part about these, is that your letter, unless your name starts with A, is not going to look like this letter when we're done, because they all have the fox going in different direction. They all have foxes, but they look a little different because every letter is shaped different. So they made them all different, so it's pretty cool. It's one of the cool things about this design. So, get down here, get his leg. And his other two legs. One of his legs must be behind one of these trees or something, because I don't see it in this design. We got a three-legged fox or something going on here. I don't think so. It's just being silly. I think it's behind a tree. Okay. Maybe it's right there. No. No, because it'd be up here. Okay, and then anywhere you want to go back and add any little details, use a little paintbrush and go in and clean up those areas. Got some areas I painted brown that are supposed to be light because they're not actually part of this box. I'm using my brush there and kind of my sponge and just drawing little lines up to make his tail. You can see that there. I just used the corner of the sponge to do that. So that's a neat little technique that you can do, even a little more simple than even a brush. I'm gonna do the same up around here, around the front part where he's a little bit lighter, just to add some dimension over that. Touch up around his belly. A little more brown in there. And around his paw. So this is the time where you can get as detailed as you want or as simple. You could paint this whole layer one color and be done. So it's completely up to you. You do not have to add all the details to your fox, but it's kind of cool. If you have paint markers at home, you can also use those. So that makes it a little bit easier sometimes. Because then you just draw it on. You don't have to use the sponge. And there we go. Fox. Give him a little bit of a red nose. A little red on the tips of his ears while I got the paintbrush out. Remember, all of that completely optional because it would be cute, just one solid color even. It's a cute little project. Okay, and there's our little fox, our little A fox. Okay, and now we're just gonna glue him together just like we did the other project. Remember, if you're using this, if your parents have any of this Star Bond glue, ask them to help you. If not, use your wood glue. Use that little brush, go around the edges, particularly the edges, the outside frame. And just a few dots in the middle. If you use the wood glue, put it on there and then like lay it down flat on the box to get any excess glue off, and then go right to your project and put it together. You can do the same thing of holding it down on the table, make sure the bottoms are level, and then just hold it together. But there is your cute little initial box litter. So that is our July maker box. Hope you enjoyed it. Can't wait to see how you painted your box. Bye.